These groundbreaking creations are not just marvels of engineering, they also hold the promise of reshaping our future. From technologies that could redefine transportation to ingenious solutions addressing global challenges, each invention on this list represents a leap forward in human progress. Join me, I'm counting down the 15 most genius inventions that will shape tomorrow. Starting with number 15, air ink. While black smoke from cars, trains, and factories may be wasteful, there's now an invention that can turn it into usable black ink. Known as air ink, it works by using a filtering device that can be fitted to an exhaust pipe. When exhaust comes out of the pipe, the filter turns it into soot, then hydrates it for use as ink. This ink is then used to fill air ink pens and markers, each of which hold about 30 milliliters of ink and are equivalent to about 45 minutes of car pollution. Number 14. Thera-grippers. While many medicines take a while to work and have awful side effects, Thera-grippers may be able to change that. Roughly the size of a speck of dust, these little guys were created by researchers at the Johns Hopkins University School of Engineering. The idea is they can deliver medicine directly into the affected part of the body, reducing the time it takes for a drug to work, minimizing the side effects, and decreasing the amount of a drug needed in the process. This can improve patient outcomes, and ultimately, it can lead to more efficient and effective treatments. Number 13. Carpet alarm clocks. A lot of us are guilty of not getting up right away in the morning. I know I am, instead opting to scroll through social media before finally waking up. However, carpet alarm clocks are a smart way to minimize this dead time. In essence, you put one right in front of your bed, and when they go off, they don't stop until you're firmly standing on top of it for at least 3 seconds. As such, if you got trouble waking up in the morning, these cool gadgets are a great tool. Number 12. Spinal implants. Over time, Parkinson's disease eats at the brain and eventually can cause people to lose the ability to walk and talk. However, in November of 2023, a spinal implant is proven that this can be fixed. Inserted into Marc Gauthier of France, it adds an additional electric signal to the brain's instructions. While Marc used to be almost completely paralyzed, he can now walk almost completely normally thanks to the help he receives from this implant. As such, there is hope that this implant can improve the lives of millions of people who struggle with Parkinson's. Number 11. The Spacetop. The dream of any sci-fi fanatic, the Spacetop. It's a laptop that uses the power of augmented reality to allow you to operate multiple floating holographic windows at once. Coming with a keyboard and no screen, when you put on your augmented reality glasses, several screens pop up right in front of you. The amount of screens used at once can apparently be near infinite, allowing you to look at multiple things as you work. In turn, the hope is that this can make people more productive. Only time will tell, though, whether or not the idea will catch on. Number 10. Redefine Meat. While Beyond Meat may be the most well-known player in the artificial meat game, an Israeli company by the name of Redefine Meat is currently developing a meat-making process that's even more innovative. That's because rather than simply use a special formula, Redefine Meat is making use of a 3D printer to create steaks that look and taste identical to the real thing. As you might imagine, creating the quote-unquote ink for a printed steak is quite difficult, yet engineers have managed to do it by using plant-based materials. These materials use the nutrients that are similar to those eaten by cows and are composed of a set of proteins from grains and legumes that mimic the muscle texture, fats, and other acids that are present in red meat. And this allows them to duplicate that juicy flavor, blood structure, and color of a steak. To date, the startup has pulled in a total investment of about $180 million to fund production lines in Israel and the Netherlands and expand its partnerships with restaurants and eateries worldwide. Beyond simply selling the product, the company hopes to make the journey by selling the printers and the cartridges to meat distributors worldwide. The company has high hopes for this product, as they're not only able to print out steaks, but can now recreate whole cuts, burgers, sausages, lamb kebabs, and ground beef. In the future, they hope to expand the offering by having every single cut of a cow on offer. However, as you might expect, reviews are mixed. On one hand, the product is great. After all, vegans have noted that the taste is spot on. And while the color and appearance are a bit too uniform, it nevertheless is an incredible alternative. However, there are some that have balked at the idea of 3D printed food, believing that it is far better and more natural to eat the real thing. Yet the reality of this market will ultimately decide whether Redefine Meat is a hit or a flop. Number 9. Edible packaging. Food packaging is generally made of plastic, and this can lead to problems when it inevitably finds its way into a landfill. However, edible packaging seems to get around this problem by making it possible to eat the package once you're done with the food inside. While edible packaging takes on many forms, there's a few types in particular that are especially fascinating. One example is a substance known as casein, a brainchild of the United States Department of Agriculture. Casein is a protein made of milk and can act as a translucent replacement for plastic wrap. What makes it great is that it's not only edible, but also biodegradable, allowing you to either eat it as a snack or throw it in the trash. It's also worth noting that the US isn't the only country jumping on this technology. After all, researchers at England's University of Nottingham have used plant carbohydrates and proteins to create their own form of edible packaging. Another leader in the edible packaging game is UHO, the inventors of the edible bottle. It's essentially a sphere that uses a double membrane of sodium alginate and calcium chloride to create a transparent gel wall that's solid enough to hold a liquid in a spherical pouch-like container. Unlike a traditional plastic water bottle, this container is completely consumable and leaves no waste behind. As a final example that's probably the tastiest, these are cookie cups. Made famous in 2003 after Italian coffee company Lavazza released a version made of a pastry dough and special powdered sugar. They've since become a popular novelty item in cafes around the world. Now, it's worth noting that these different forms of packaging come with their own sets of problems. After all, there's the issue of sanitation, as it's not always the best idea to eat the packaging, depending on what it's touched. Yet the technology itself is quite interesting, and certainly it's starting to see more and more use as time goes on. Number 8. The CanGo Smart Cane. As the boomer generation continues to age, the need to create tech that caters to them has become more and more important. And while many inventions exist to help this age group with mobility issues, the CanGo Smart Cane may just be the smartest of them all. While it looks like a simple cane at first glance, it's got features that set it apart from your ordinary old curved wooden stick. Developed in collaboration with former Apple Vice President Don Norman, on the outside the cane is as high-tech as it gets. Set with a dozen built-in sensors, it can track your activity, measure how much weight you're putting on the cane, and determine your overall gait speed. And while some of these features might sound a bit useless, they have a very important scientific utility. For example, in clinical settings, gait speed, which tracks the time it takes to walk from point A to point B, is the metric used to assess your mobility and predict how likely you are to fall. Since this cane constantly keeps track of these metrics, it's able to add the data to a database accessible to caregivers. Updated daily, this database allows the caregivers to assess how fast your arthritis is progressing, how fast you're recovering from something like a hip replacement surgery, and in all, how likely you are to fall. This in turn can allow them to modify your treatments and prevent further injury. Now, if that wasn't cool enough, it also has a pretty sleek, attractive design that makes it look a little better than your average cane. In order to make it accessible to use though, it's got 3 buttons. One to make a call, a second one to turn on a flashlight, and a third to alternate between the metrics, which appear on a display screen above it, making the cane a pretty useful everyday tool. However, while it might be pretty cool, its price of $400 does make it stand far out of reach for most people. So I really hope that the prices will reduce sooner rather than later so they can be a lot more accessible. Moving on to number 7, plastic ice cream. So plastic pollution has become a major problem globally, but in September, reports came out about scientists who recycled old plastic to make fully edible ice cream. While it may sound a bit dystopian, the idea came from the ingredient in synthetic vanillin. For those of you not in the know, vanillin is a common food flavoring sold in supermarkets and used as a cheap alternative to vanilla. However, what many don't realize is that it's made using crude oil, which is the same raw material as plastic. Using this reasoning, scientists figured that they could find an enzyme to break down the super strong bonds between molecules in the structure of plastic. They could synthesize some of them into vanillin. The resulting substance apparently smells just like vanilla, and it's been used to make vanilla ice cream, but to date, nobody's really tried it. That's because while its molecular structure is identical to that of vanilla, it's considered to be a completely new ingredient by food safety bodies, and it must get the green light before testing can begin. Now, while there are some people who are excited at the prospect of using human waste to produce food, others are not so sure due to it being quite unnatural. However, according to Eleonora Ortolani, who was the lead scientist on the project, quote, "If I tell you there's an ingredient in that ice cream coming from plastic waste, you're going to be completely disgusted by it. But once you understand that basically everything is part of the same ecosystem, and we can even consider plastic part of the same ecosystem, then it makes total sense. We drastically have to change the way we eat and the way we perceive food. I'm not saying we have to look at the future of food as everything being synthetic or super processed, but it's just a matter of compromise for me." End quote. Well, in any case, I'm sure that if the experiment does prove to be safe and successful, there could be a push to produce similar recycled ingredients. However, given the somewhat off-putting nature of the whole thing, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole idea gets canned. However, the reality is that only time will tell. Number 6. Invisibility Cloaks. While it may be hard to believe, we're coming very close to creating these real-life invisibility cloaks. Work around the subject has been going on for years, but in 2019, a Canadian company called Hyperstealth Technology really got the ball rolling when they suggested that it is possible to bend light around an object using a quantum stealth cloak to make something or someone disappear. While this quantum stealth cloak wouldn't make someone 100% transparent, it would be close enough, and it was because of this that discussions begun about how to use this technology in a military context. Then in 2020, the Israeli Ministry of Defense and a tech company Polaris Solutions announced the launch of a 500-gram thermal visual concealment sheet that uses polymers to conceal anyone or anything underneath it. While not able to make a soldier invisible, what it does do is use a mix of microfibers, metals, and polymers to make their thermal signatures near zero. This in turn makes it harder to find them with thermal cameras, thereby helping them in the battlefield. However, it was in 2022 that the first conventional thermal jacket was announced. While still in the proof of concept stage, the idea is that it will use 42 panels made up of a certain type of graphene that can trick a thermal camera into believing hot things are cold or cold things are hot. This in turn can make someone's thermal signature near invisible. Now, in a military context, this would make a step up from the Israeli Ministry of Defense and Polaris' thermal sheet, as it would allow troops to move while still being invisible to thermal cameras. Now, to date, the jacket only works when hooked up to a computer with wires, and it may be some time before we have invisibility cloaks in a more conventional sense. And I guess it's also worth noting that there's a bit of an ethical dilemma with this technology. After all, there's something to be said about the morality of letting people become invisible. And it's very possible that these invisible people could commit crimes such as murder and theft and get away absolutely scot-free. So while this technology may seem pretty cool on the surface, it's also got a lot of negative implications. Number 5. The Tesla Optimus. While most factories rely on human labor, there may soon be machines that can work 24/7 and make regular workers redundant. The brainchild of Elon Musk, the machine in question is Tesla's Optimus robot, featuring a fully humanoid head and self-driving torso that can perform most of the basic tasks that a human can. It will be able to carry a maximum of about 20 kilograms, and at 173 meters in height and 57 kilograms in weight, it will be the approximate size of an adult human. It'll be powered by 40 electromechanical actuators, and its face will feature a screen display. Now, while all of this might seem a little scary, Elon Musk has promised that there will be some limits on the machine. More specifically, he said that it will be limited to a walking speed of 8 kilometers an hour and will be weak enough for most humans to easily overpower it. With this being the case, just in case the machine goes haywire. Musk also said that, quote, "It's intended to be friendly, of course, and to navigate through a world built for humans and eliminate dangerous, repetitive, and boring tasks," end quote. Now, the first rendition of these robots was shown by Musk in late September of 2022. At this point in time, the whole thing was a bit of a disaster. After all, while the Optimus was able to wave to an audience, it couldn't even walk. Yet ever since then, there have been some major improvements. To date, the Tesla Optimus is reportedly able to self-calibrate its arms and legs and perform a yoga pose. The hope is that when it's finished development and out for production, these robots will cost less than $20,000 a pop, making them a pretty cost-effective substitute for humans. Interestingly enough, Musk hasn't been the only one to get in on this humanoid activity. Recently, China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology has published plans on how it will have a fleet of humanoid robots by 2025, with these reportedly being able to move at 5 kilometers an hour and carry 50 kilograms. So as you might expect, both of these projects got a lot of backlash, as many doubt whether or not these inventions are actually a net positive for society. There are also many who see them as dangerous and believe that these types of machines on the mass market could only lead to widespread trouble. However, I'm curious to know what you think. Do you believe that humanoid robots are a good idea, or should world governments work to can them? Let me know in the comments down below. Number 4. Innovative farming. While farming may not be something you associate with the cutting edge of technology, the reality is that in order to meet the modern demands for food, a lot of high-tech machines and out-of-the-box thinking is required. Part of this thinking has been the creation of entirely new types of farms, and some have the potential to solve a lot of the problems we have surrounding sustainability. Take indoor vertical farming as an example. This is a type of farming that's taken its root in dense urban areas with little space for farmland. More specifically, this practice suggests that farms should use growing shelves in order to create optimal farming environments. Now, while they can be as simple as a traditional soil shelf, many of the farms have gotten innovative, with some using hydroponic growing, where vegetables are cultivated in a nutrient-dense bowl of water, or aeroponic growing, where the plant's roots are allowed to hang freely and are then systematically sprayed with water and nutrients. In any of these three cases, the crops are generally given nutrients via artificial growth lights, while sensors are used to regulate the track and temperature, the humidity, and nutrient levels of the crops. All of this tech seems to be paying off, as it's estimated that these vertical indoor farms use 70% less water for the same amount of output when compared to a regular farm, making them far more efficient. On the other hand, people have been looking to unused ocean space to meet our farming needs. Known as underwater farms, the idea is that crops can be grown in capsules underwater. Now, unlike conventional crops, underwater farms don't need pesticides. They can make use of seawater condensation to have virtually an unlimited supply of fresh water and can be maintained without the use of much labor. And while this is just getting off its feet, one of the most successful underwater operations is located just off the coast of Italy, consisting of multiple plastic pods that are suspended at depths between 4.5 and 11 meters. This farm has efficiently produced zucchini, beans, mushrooms, lettuce, orchids, and aloe vera plants. And it is pretty tricky to scale this type of farming. If just 2% of the ocean floor was filled with these farms, we would reportedly be able to feed the entire world. So it's definitely worth putting in some effort to try to expand their usage. In any case, while innovative farming techniques still have a way to go, many will be essential if we're to have sustainable and healthy food supply in the coming decades. And as new challenges such as global warming threaten to make conventional farming unpredictable, solutions that offer controlled conditions may just be our best way forward. Number 3. The ocean bird. There are almost always significant winds out on the ocean, and this is a reality that makes the ocean bird a functional concept. The idea is that it will be the first cargo ship that can run entirely on wind power, with the hope being that this 200-meter-long vessel will be able to transport up to 7,000 cars at any one time. This should be possible thanks to the fact that it will have a set of 5 expandable wind sails designed to extend up to 65 meters above the surface of the water. They'll be made from steel and composite materials and resemble airplane wings in design. These wings consist of a mainsail and a flap that can be adjusted based on weather conditions. And while the vessel will have regular engines in order to navigate around harbors, the goal is for the boat to reduce carbon emissions by about 90% when compared to a conventional ship. And this will come with some cost. After all, the ocean bird will take 12 days rather than the traditional 8 to cross the Atlantic, and will be more expensive to operate. But I guess the pros outweigh the cons here. And best of all, it seems like construction of the ocean bird is on track to be sailing soon. This is because the first vessel with a full-scale wing sail prototype is set to be sailing by 2024, while the first vessel with a full set of ocean bird wing sails should be in service before the end of 2026. Now, if that wasn't cool enough, the ship is also pretty cool. After all, they're the official partner to the concert residency ABBA voyage, meaning that future ocean bird vessels can be named after ABBA songs. Fun aside, in August, the company secured what is known as approval in principle from DNV. Now, DNV sets the standards for shipping construction and safety, and now that this approval has been received, the path has been paved for a prototype wing sail to be fitted to a ship. Now, it's worth noting that Ocean Bird has planned to address the approximately 60,000 commercial vessels on the water today. That's because they believe they can add value by retrofitting their sails onto other ships. According to their calculations, one of these sails can reduce fuel consumption from a main engine by 7 to 10% on favorable ocean-going routes, thereby saving about 675,000 liters of diesel per year per ship. This in turn would not only save about 2,000 tons of CO2 from ending up in the atmosphere, but over time would help these ships save money on fuel costs, making it a win-win for everyone involved. In any case, so long as everything goes to plan, the Ocean Bird and ships retrofitted with these sails will be out on the water in the near future. Number 2. Ozempic. When it comes to the world of medicine, one medication that's been all the rage in recent years is Ozempic. It was approved for the use of treatment for diabetics in 2017 under the name Ozempic, and in an altered form for use in treating obesity in 2021 under the name Wegovy. It's made the rounds due to it being able to help people lose large amounts of weight in very short periods of time. used by celebrities such as Elon Musk and Amy Schumer. At the moment, it's not approved by the FDA for sale as a weight loss drug. However, that hasn't stopped celebrities and the rich in general from signing up for the stuff in droves. In essence, the drug uses something called semaglutide to lower blood sugar levels and regulates insulin. At the same time, it also imitates a hormone called glucagon-like peptide 1. Now, this is something we naturally produce in our intestines, and it limits our appetite by signaling to our bodies that we feel full. This makes our stomach empty food more slowly, and as a result, it makes you feel full faster and therefore helps you lose weight. Now, if that wasn't crazy enough, it also seems to help people cut cravings for things such as alcohol, making it easier for them to follow the sorts of regimented diets that are necessary for weight loss. So as you might expect, this has made the drug extremely expensive for those without insurance. At current rates, a 28-day supply of Wegovy goes for about $1,300, while a month-long supply of Ozempic is about $900. If you don't meet the FDA's criteria, chances are you're paying full price, but for the rich and powerful, this is pocket change that they're happy to fork over. As you might expect, this situation hasn't exactly led to smooth sailing. On one hand, the vast amounts of rich people using the drug has cut down the supply, making it really hard for people who actually need the drug for diabetes or obesity to get their hands on it. Furthermore, there's been a recent class action lawsuit that suggests that Ozempic has a host of horrendous side effects that include intense vomiting, painful gallstones, and masses of food slowly forming a painful obstruction in the stomach. Filed by the Canadian province of British Columbia, the suit notes that in 2022, more than 3.5 million prescriptions for Ozempic, worth nearly $1.2 billion, were dispensed by retail drugstores in Canada, and that those who take it are at a real risk of developing serious conditions. The suit contends that many of these issues are not made known to those who are prescribed the drug, and that in many cases the symptoms are so bad that they have essentially led to the paralyzation of the stomach, making it near impossible for it to do what is intended to do. However, at this point, the lawsuit still has to go through court, and only time will tell whether or not Ozempic and Wegovy will turn out to be safe, scalable, and long-term solutions to both diabetes and weight-related problems. Number 1. ChatGPT. So by this point, AI seems to be mentioned in practically every business-related earnings call and news report, and for good reason. It's got the ability to replace humans in many ways. Yet while there are a million different AI technologies that are out there at our disposal, ChatGPT is easily the most well-known and accessible. First released on November 30th of 2022, it quickly went viral. After all, not only was it good at solving all the math quotations thrown at it and questions asked of it, but more importantly, it was free. This has held mostly true to this day. After all, ChatGPT's developer OpenAI continues to offer a free version known as GPT 3.5, although if you want the most advanced version, which is known as GPT-4, you gotta pay $20 a month. Regardless whether you have the free or paid version, ChatGPT has proven to be a useful tool, helping many cut redundant or repetitive tasks out of their day by simply getting ChatGPT to do their work for them. All of this has made OpenAI a lot of money. To date, they've raised over $11 billion in funding, and the company's believed to be worth about $29 billion. It's also got a lot of potential to make other people money. After all, there are many reports out there of how ChatGPT has made incredible stock picks, wrote high-quality written content, and built websites and apps that were later sold for a profit. However, ChatGPT has also caused its fair share of problems due to its somewhat frequent factual errors. For example, over the course of a few months between March and June of 2023, GPT-4 went from correctly answering simple math problems 98% of the time to just 2% of the time. It's also known to generate incorrect information, as one New York lawyer found out the hard way after he used ChatGPT to find prior cases, only to realize in court that they were not real. This in turn led him to being sanctioned by the court and being forced to pay a $5,000 fine. Now, while many of these holes can be fixed with time, many believe it would be dangerous if AI like ChatGPT was adopted en masse. If it were, then there would have to be constant monitoring to ensure that it wasn't screwing up. To many, this is counterproductive. After all, if you continuously have to worry about ChatGPT being wrong, it may just be faster to do the work yourself. It's also worth noting that over time, a number of ChatGPT users has been declining, decreasing about 10% globally in June and July and 3% in August. It's also worth noting that the average time spent on the site by each user has also gone down, decreasing from 8.7 minutes in March to 7 minutes in August. Now, that doesn't mean AI is dead. After all, as people and companies begin to get used to AI, there's a good chance that many are simply moving to more sophisticated paid software. Some of it may also be fear. After all, there is now software that can detect ChatGPT-generated writing. And so while the site was popular among students in the early days, that popularity has been steadily declining. So, while AI will almost certainly continue to be important for years to come, the role that ChatGPT will play in this growth is still very unclear. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you to our channel members.